Hi guys, and welcome back to Berthelot's Can Cook. I'm going to be doing a classic, which is brownies. Our family loves brownies. These ones, however, are healthier brownies. I say that in quotation marks because our brownies are really healthy, but we are replacing a lot of what we used to use in terms of fats with avocados. Also, in this recipe, I'm actually going to be using regular flour, but I love this gluten-free flour as well. The only substitution I would make is if I'm using gluten-free flour, instead of using 3/4 cup of sugar, I would be putting basically half a cup of maple syrup and the rest in brown sugar, just because it gets really dry when you're using gluten-free flour. Well, it often does. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using flour. As I said, I like using brown sugar, but you can use white as well. And like I said, you can use a portion of it as maple syrup. And I'll show you the actual recipe, which does call for maple syrup, so you can add that if you want. 2 large eggs, 2 medium avocados, which is, what's a medium avocado? The ones that are organic are super small, and then the ones that aren't are gigantic. I love these PC chunk pieces of chocolate instead of regular chocolate chips. They're very good. We need some baking soda. We need some vanilla extract, our cocoa powder, and a bit of salt. So we're gonna get started here, and the first thing we're gonna do is use my trick of greasing the pan with a bit of coconut oil. And then I'm gonna give you a better angle at looking at me putting the ingredients together. But first, here's the list of ingredients in case you wanna make this at home. We are going to set our oven to 350. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is greasing the bottom of my pan. It'd be better to have maybe not an oval pan like this, but that's what I have. Then we're going to put that aside. I like using coconut oil for that, as you know. I've melted a bit of butter here. This is totally an extra, guys. That's a fancy. You don't need to add the butter, but I find fat makes everything better. So yes, I'm adding it. And then I'm going to be adding my 2 avocados, my 2 eggs, mixing that together prior to mixing with the sugar. Oh, the last thing is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I'm going to be speeding this up for you guys. Okay, so now we have our avocado, our egg, our vanilla extract, our tiny bit of butter, which is just for me, added in. And did I mention the eggs? Now we're going to be adding our sugar. Like I said earlier, if you're using gluten-free flour, please add half a cup of maple syrup and then 1/4 of a cup of sugar. I've often wondered if the fact that I use brown sugar instead of white changes anything, but it seems to be a really good a really good recipe either way. And this is something that you really could make. It takes less than 20 minutes to make and then only has to bake for half an hour. So it's quick. It's quick, guys. Unlike this video, which I realize is a little tedious. Okay, so brown sugar. And I use the full amount in brown sugar, and that's mostly because I am not wasting maple syrup on a recipe. No, ma'am. Okay. So there we go. We got our brown sugar in there. And this one isn't overly sweet, I will tell you that. The avocado looks really good. So we're gonna mix that together. Okay, so now I'm gonna be putting my mixture to the side, and I am gonna be mixing my dry ingredients in this one. So we're going to be using half a cup of flour. I have made it before where I've added a bit more flour if I felt like it was too wet, but I guess you have to make that a few times before you realize that. So half a cup of flour, and then you're going to be putting half a cup of brand new cocoa powder. Ooh. Okay. Realize cocoa powder is extremely expensive. $8 for this container. What's the world coming to, guys? Okay, and then we're going to be putting half a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And I do think it's better to mix the dry ingredients separately, but you could always, in a pinch, you could always put it into the same bowl. I've done that before. Okay, and now our baking powder, which is also half a teaspoon. Okay, get her in there, eh? Okay, now we're just gonna mix that together. I already smell the chocolatey. Okay. Once it's mixed, we're then gonna pull our bowl over and we're going to mix the dry into the wet a little bit at a time. Okay, so might speed this up for you guys again. These look delicious. Look at this. Great. Okay, so I'm just gonna be folding in the rest of the cocoa powder as well as adding half a cup of these, okay? I just wanna show you what these look like. This really makes a difference. It's these chocolate chunks, which are so good. Okay. Half a cup of those. So good. Okay. Let's fold her in. This is gonna be delish. Okay, now let's place this chocolate into the pan. So this would be in an 8x8 dish, or in this, whatever you have. Sometimes I like to flour the bottom of the pan just a little bit after I've greased it, which I forgot to do. Okay, and we're gonna be putting that into the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. This is them out of the oven. We're just gonna use a toothpick. And when it's clear, it's ready. Delicious. And the texture is amazing.